If you enjoy stories about unfaithful husbands, this channel is for you. Leave a like and support us by subscribing to the channel. My husband left me for a younger woman, and I never saw it coming. I never thought I'd be that woman. You know the one, sitting alone in a half-empty house, staring at the walls she painted herself, wondering where everything went wrong. But here I am, 34 years old, 2 kids asleep upstairs, and a husband who just told me he's leaving me for someone younger. He said it so casually, like he was telling me he'd be late for dinner. "I need to be honest with you, Sarah," he said, standing in our kitchen, the one I redesigned after months of saving, with his hands in his pockets like he was about to discuss the weather. "I'm not happy anymore. I haven't been for a while." I felt my chest tighten. My hands gripped the edge of the counter. "What are you talking about?" I whispered. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw it, that coldness, that distance I'd been trying to ignore for months. "I met someone," he said, "at work. She makes me feel alive again." Alive. The word hung in the air between us like poison. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But all I could do was stand there, frozen, while my mind raced through the last 10 years of our marriage. The sacrifices, the compromises, the nights I stayed up with his sick mother while he worked late, the career I put on hold when our son was born, the weight I gained after our daughter, the stretch marks I tried to hide, the exhaustion I wore like a second skin, and he felt alive with someone else. "How long?" I finally managed to ask. He hesitated. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of him coming home late, claiming overtime. Half a year of me suggesting date nights, therapy, anything to reconnect, while he was already gone. "I'm moving out this weekend," he said, his voice flat, emotionless. "I've already talked to a lawyer." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a conversation. This wasn't even a fight. This was an announcement. He'd already decided, already planned his exit, already chosen her over me, over us, over everything we built together, and I never saw it coming. People always say marriage is about compromise. What they don't tell you is that sometimes one person does all the compromising while the other just takes. I gave up everything for him. When we first got married, I had a good job, marketing coordinator at a mid-sized firm in Boston. I loved it. The creativity, the deadlines, the team lunches where we'd brainstorm campaigns over terrible coffee. I was good at what I did. I had a future there. Then his mother got sick. Stage 3 breast cancer. She needed someone with her constantly. Doctor's appointments, chemotherapy sessions, someone to cook meals she could actually keep down. Michael's father had passed years before, and his brother lived across the country. "Just for a few months," Michael said, his eyes pleading. "Please, Sarah, she has no one else." So I quit. I walked away from my career, my salary, my identity outside of being his wife, and I became a full-time caretaker for a woman who never quite approved of me in the first place. Those few months turned into 2 years. By the time his mother went into remission, I was pregnant with our son, Jake. Michael convinced me it made sense to stay home. "Why pay for daycare when you're already here?" he'd said, as if my time, my ambitions, my dreams were worth less than a monthly childcare bill. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd go back to work once Jake started school. Then our daughter Emma came along 3 years later, and that plan evaporated. I poured myself into being the perfect wife, the perfect mother. I made home-cooked meals every night. I kept the house spotless. I managed every birthday party, every school event, every soccer practice. I supported Michael's career, celebrated his promotions, listened to him complain about office politics while my own professional life became a distant memory. And when he stayed late at work, when he seemed distracted during dinner, when he stopped touching me the way he used to, I blamed myself. Maybe if I'd lost the baby weight faster. Maybe if I'd been more interesting, more exciting, more like the woman he married instead of the exhausted mother I'd become. I gave him everything, and he gave me 6 months of lies before walking away. The distance started after Emma was born. I remember the exact moment I noticed it. I was in the hospital bed, exhausted, holding our newborn daughter against my chest. She was perfect. Tiny fingers, dark hair, Michael's nose. I looked up at him, expecting to see joy, pride, that overwhelming love you're supposed to feel when you become a parent. Instead, he was on his phone. "Michael," I said softly, "look at her." He glanced up, smiled briefly, then went back to scrolling. "I am looking. She's beautiful, honey. I just need to answer this email real quick." That should have been my first warning. The weeks after Emma's birth were brutal. She had colic, screaming for hours every night. Jake, only 3 years old, was jealous and acting out. I was healing from a difficult delivery, bleeding through pads, crying in the shower from sheer exhaustion. And Michael? He worked late, every single night. "I can't just leave when there's a big project," he'd say, defensive when I asked him to come home earlier. "Someone has to pay the bills, Sarah." As if I wasn't working 24 hours a day keeping our children alive. The intimacy disappeared first. He stopped kissing me goodnight, stopped reaching for my hand during movies. When I tried to initiate sex months after Emma was born, he turned away. "I'm tired," he muttered. But he wasn't too tired to stay up until midnight on his laptop. Wasn't too tired to go to the gym at 6 a.m. before work. Wasn't too tired to meet his coworkers for drinks on Fridays. Just too tired for me. I suggested couples therapy during one of our rare dinners together. I'd been reading articles, forums, desperate to understand why my husband felt like a stranger. "We should talk to someone," I said carefully. "I feel like we're drifting apart." He looked at me like I'd suggested something ridiculous. "We're fine, Sarah," he said, cutting into his steak. "You're overthinking. We have 2 young kids. This is just what marriage looks like now." But it didn't feel fine. It felt like drowning while someone watched from the shore. I pushed down the panic, told myself he was right. This was normal. This was marriage with small children. I was just being dramatic. God, I was so stupid. He came home late on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were supposed to be his early days. The one night he'd promised to be home for dinner, to help with bedtime, to give me just 2 hours where I wasn't doing everything alone. But at 7:30, his spot at the table was still empty. I texted him. No response. By 8, I'd fed the kids, bathed them, read stories, and tucked them in by myself. Again, he walked through the door at 9:47. I was on the couch, staring at the TV without really watching it, my phone clutched in my hand. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Work ran late," he said, not even looking at me. He headed straight for the kitchen. Something inside me snapped. "You said you'd be here, Michael. You promised." He stopped, turned around slowly, and that's when I saw it. The guilt written all over his face. Not guilt about missing dinner. Guilt about something much worse. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. Those 4 words. The ones you hear in movies before everything falls apart. He sat down across from me, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "I can't do this anymore," he said. "I can't keep pretending." "Pretending what?" My voice cracked. "That I'm happy. That this marriage is working." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were cold, resolved. "I don't want to be with you anymore, Sarah." The room started spinning. "There's someone else," he continued, and each word felt like a knife. "Her name is Jessica. She works in my department. She makes me feel things I haven't felt in years." "How long?" I whispered. 6 months. 6 months of lies. 6 months of him touching someone else while I waited at home with his children. "I'm in love with her," he said, and he actually looked relieved to finally say it. "I need to pursue this without guilt. I need to be free. Free. Like I was a prison. Like our marriage, our family, our vows were chains holding him back from his happiness. "I want a divorce," he said. "I'm moving out this weekend." And just like that, 10 years dissolved into nothing. I know how this sounds. I know what people will think when I say this, but I need to be honest about my first thought when he said he was leaving. It wasn't about losing him. It was about losing the house. I stared at him sitting there, confessing his affair, asking for his freedom, and all I could think was, not the house. Please, God, not the house. This house was mine. Maybe the only thing in our marriage that truly was. I'd spent 3 years transforming it. Every wall color I'd agonized over, testing samples in different lights. The kitchen backsplash I'd installed myself, watching YouTube tutorials at midnight while Michael slept. The garden I'd planted, the curtains I'd sewn, the vintage light fixtures I'd hunted for at estate sales. This house was the only place where I still recognized myself, where I still had proof that I was more than just Michael's wife, more than just Jake and Emma's mother. "What about the house?" I heard myself ask. He looked surprised. "What?" "The house. This house. Who gets it?" "Sarah, I just told you I'm in love with someone else, and you're asking about who gets the house." My voice was shaking. He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know. We'll figure it out with the lawyers." Jesus, Sarah. But I couldn't stop. Couldn't focus on anything else because if I thought about him leaving, about him choosing her, about me being 34 years old with 2 small children, no job, no career, no identity outside of this failed marriage, I'd completely fall apart, and I saw myself suddenly, clearly, for what I'd become. 34 years old, 15 pounds heavier than my wedding day, stretch marks across my stomach, no income, no recent work experience, no prospects. Who would want me now? I looked down at my body, the body that had grown and birthed his children, that I'd neglected while caring for everyone else, the body he apparently didn't want anymore. Jessica was younger, I knew without asking, probably thin, probably ambitious, with a career and adult conversations and a life that didn't revolve around Peppa Pig and potty training, and I was just left over. I can't lose this house, I whispered, more to myself than to him, because without it, I had nothing. I was nothing. I didn't sleep that night, while Michael packed a bag in our bedroom, with the dove gray walls I'd painted last spring. I sat in the living room with my phone, shaking. I needed help. I needed someone who could tell me what to do, how to breathe, how to survive what was happening. But I didn't call my parents, didn't call my friends. I called his family first. I know that sounds backwards, but Michael's family had resources. His brother David was a lawyer in Chicago. His mother, despite our complicated history, had money, connections, power, and I needed all of that now. David answered on the 3rd ring. "Sarah, it's almost midnight. Everything okay?" "Michael's leaving me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "He's having an affair. He wants a divorce." Silence. Then, "That son of a bitch." I started crying then. Real ugly sobs that I'd been holding back for hours. "Does Mom know?" David asked. "Not yet." "You're the first person I've called. I'm calling her right now. Don't you dare let him bully you into anything. You hear me? Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything." 20 minutes later, Michael's mother called. I expected anger, maybe blame. Instead, her voice was steel. "You will get a lawyer tomorrow morning," she said. "A good one. I'm sending you the name of the best divorce attorney in Massachusetts. She's expensive, but I'll cover the retainer. I can't let you... You took care of me when I was dying, Sarah. When my own son was too busy with his career." Her voice cracked slightly. "You think I don't know what you sacrificed? What you gave up for this family?" I pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from sobbing. "He doesn't get to throw you away like garbage," she continued. "Not after everything. You fight for that house. You fight for those babies. You take him for everything he's worth." The next morning, I had an appointment with Catherine Morrison, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Boston. Michael came downstairs with his suitcase, looking surprised to see me dressed, makeup on, sitting at the kitchen table with a notepad. "We need to talk about custody," I said calmly. His face went pale. He thought I'd just fall apart, thought I'd beg him to stay. He had no idea what was coming. I need to say something that's hard to admit. Despite everything, the affair, the lies, the cruelty of how he left, I still loved him. God, I hated myself for it, but it was true. Sitting in Catherine Morrison's sleek downtown Boston office, listening to her explain asset division and custody agreements, all I could think about was the man I married 10 years ago, the Michael who brought me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings, who slow danced with me in our tiny first apartment's kitchen, who cried when Jake was born, holding our son like he was the most precious thing in the world. Where did that man go? "Sarah, are you listening?" Catherine's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "I'm sorry." "Yes." She leaned forward, her expression softening slightly. "I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to focus. Your husband is going to try to keep the house. Men like him always do. They think because they paid the mortgage, it's theirs. But I made it a home," I whispered. "Exactly. And in Massachusetts? That matters." She slid a folder across her mahogany desk. "Everything you've put into that house, the renovations, the improvements, the time, it all counts. Plus, you're the primary caregiver. The court will likely want the children to stay in their home environment." I should have felt relief, victory even. Instead, I felt hollow, because I didn't just want the house. I wanted my marriage back. I wanted Michael to realize he'd made a terrible mistake. I wanted him to come home, apologize, beg for forgiveness. I wanted the life we were supposed to have. "He's going to fight dirty," Catherine warned. "He'll claim you're financially dependent, that you can't afford the house without him. He'll use your weight gain, your lack of employment. Anything he can to paint you as unstable. Each word was a knife. Can he do that? He can try, but we'll be ready. She closed the folder. I need you to start documenting everything. Every text, every email, every conversation. Especially anything regarding his affair or the children. I nodded numbly. That night, I lay in bed, our bed, where he'd slept beside me for a decade, and cried until my ribs hurt. Because the truth was, I didn't just love the house. I loved him. And losing both was destroying me. 1 week later, everything escalated. David, Michael's brother, flew in from Chicago unannounced. He showed up at the house on a Saturday morning while Michael was there picking up more of his things. I was in the kitchen with the kids when I heard raised voices from the driveway. You need to leave. Now. David's voice carried through the open window. This is my house, David. I have every right. You lost that right when you started screwing your coworker while your wife raised your kids. I'd never heard David sound like that. Cold, furious. Through the window, I watched Michael's face turn red. This is none of your business. Mom made it my business when she called me crying. You think you can just abandon Sarah after everything she's done for this family? After she gave up her career to take care of Mom? To raise Jake and Emma? Michael looked toward the house, saw me watching. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Shame, maybe, or regret. Then it was gone. I'm getting the rest of my things and leaving, he said. No. You're leaving now. Sarah's lawyer will contact you about retrieving your belongings. That evening, Michael started texting me. Not apologies. Not concern for the children. Divorce terms. Michael, we need to discuss the house. I'm proposing we sell it and split the proceeds. My hands shook reading it. Michael, it's the fairest solution. You can't afford it on your own anyway. Then another message. Michael, I'll take primary custody of the kids on weekends. You can have weekdays since you're not working. Not working. Like raising his children wasn't work. 2 days later, he showed up at 9 p.m., unannounced, holding a manila folder. We need to talk, he said when I opened the door. It's 9 o'clock. The kids are asleep. This won't take long. He pushed past me into the house he wanted to take from me. I had my lawyer draw up some preliminary terms. If you sign now, we can avoid a messy court battle. I looked at the folder in his hands, then at his face. He wasn't even trying to hide his impatience. This was just an inconvenience to him. I was an inconvenience. Get out, I said quietly. Sarah, be reasonable. Get out. Louder this time. He stared at me, surprised. Then his expression hardened. You're going to regret this, he said, throwing the folder on the entry table. I'm not the bad guy here. Then he left, and I realized something terrifying. He actually believed that. The folder sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days before I finally opened it. Catherine had warned me not to look at anything Michael sent without her present, but I couldn't help myself. I needed to know what he thought our marriage, our family, our life together was worth. The terms were brutal. He wanted the house sold, wanted 50-50 custody, despite never having done a single bedtime routine in the past 6 months. Wanted to split our savings, the savings I'd built up from my old job, from birthday money, from every penny I'd scraped together while he spent freely on lunches, drinks, gym memberships. But what gutted me most was the section about the children. There was nothing there. No mention of Jake's soccer schedule. No acknowledgement that Emma still had nightmares and needed someone to sit with her until she fell back asleep. No consideration for the fact that he'd barely seen them since he moved out. He didn't ask about them. Didn't text to say goodnight. Didn't show up to Jake's soccer game last Saturday even though he'd promised. I called him that night. Why didn't you come to Jake's game? I asked when he answered. Silence. Then, I had plans with Jessica. Jessica. He said her name so casually, like she was more important than his 7-year-old son standing on the sideline, scanning the crowd for his father. Jake kept looking for you, I said, my voice breaking. He asked me 3 times when you were coming. I'll make the next one. You said that last time. Sarah, I can't drop everything every time there's a game. I have a life too. A life. With her. While his children wondered why Daddy didn't love them anymore. You don't even care, do you? The words spilled out before I could stop them. About Jake. About Emma. About what this is doing to them. Of course I care. But his voice was defensive. Annoyed. I'm still their father. Then act like it. He hung up. I stood there in my kitchen. The kitchen I'd remodeled. In the house he wanted to take. With our children asleep upstairs. And realized something horrifying. He saw himself as the victim in all of this. Poor Michael. Trapped in an unhappy marriage. finally brave enough to pursue his happiness. The children were just details to be negotiated. The house, an asset to be liquidated. And me? I was the obstacle standing between him and his new life. He didn't feel guilty. He felt inconvenienced. The courthouse in downtown Boston was freezing. I sat beside Catherine in the family court waiting room, my hands shaking so badly I had to grip my purse to steady them. Across the hall, Michael sat with his lawyer, some slick guy in an expensive suit who'd already tried to intimidate me in the parking lot. "Ready?" Catherine asked, her voice low. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Judge Patricia Hernandez didn't waste time. She reviewed our case with sharp eyes, flipping through documents while Michael's lawyer painted me as an unstable, unemployed woman who couldn't possibly maintain the house or provide for the children. "Your Honor, Mrs. Carter hasn't held employment in over 7 years. She's financially dependent, emotionally volatile, and frankly, keeping the marital home would be irresponsible." "I'd like to submit additional evidence," Catherine interrupted, standing. She slid a folder across to the judge. My heart pounded. Michael's face went pale. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, bank statements showing Michael had spent over $15,000 on Jessica during their affair, hotel rooms, jewelry, weekend trips to Cape Cod, all while claiming we needed to tighten our budget at home. But that wasn't the worst part. Catherine had also included testimony from Michael's own mother and brother, detailing how I'd sacrificed my career to care for his dying mother, how I'd built our home with my own hands, how Michael had abandoned his children. "Your Honor," Catherine said calmly, "Mr. Carter wants to claim financial responsibility while simultaneously hiding assets and neglecting his parental duties. He missed 11 of his son's 12 soccer games this season. He hasn't asked about his daughter's well-being in 6 weeks. Michael's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Hernandez raised her hand. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice ice-cold, "you want 50-50 custody of children you barely see?" Michael opened his mouth, closed it. "This court awards primary custody to Mrs. Carter. The marital home remains hers. Child support will be calculated at your actual income, Mr. Carter, not the reduced figure you attempted to claim." I felt Catherine squeeze my hand under the table, but I wasn't done. That night, I did something I'd been planning for weeks. I'd found Michael's work email in an old shared document. I knew his company had a strict ethics policy about workplace relationships, especially ones that violated their fraternization rules. I sent HR everything, the timeline of the affair, the evidence that Michael had been using company resources, company trips, company credit cards, to facilitate his relationship with Jessica. By Monday morning, Michael's boss called him in. By Tuesday, Jessica had been transferred to their Denver office. By Wednesday, Michael's promotion, the one he'd been counting on, the one he'd sacrificed his family for, was given to someone else. David texted me. He's furious. Blames you for everything. Says you ruined his life. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Good." 2 weeks later, I was repainting the bedroom when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Sarah." Michael's voice. Broken. Desperate. "Please. Can we talk?" I looked around my room, in my house, that I'd fought for and won. "There's nothing left to say, Michael. Jessica left me. Work is a nightmare. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Can we try again? For the kids? For the kids. The ones he'd ignored for months." I felt something shift inside me. Not anger anymore. Not even satisfaction. Just peace. "No," I said simply. "We can't. Sarah, please. Goodbye, Michael." I hung up, and I never looked back. Thank you for watching until the end. Your support is very important. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.